All right, I just got done watching Bound for Glory 2012, and I'm going to give my brief opinion on it. All right. First match on the card was Rob Van Dam versus Zema for the X Division Championship. This was a good match. Somebody commented that this is a make or break match for Zema and I gotta say that Rob Van Dam did do a very good job of making him look good. And for an opener, I'd say this was a good match. Like, you don't want to steal the show at the opening, otherwise everything else is like, you are unworthy to be on the same show as this one, you know. But but again, good match between Zema and Rob Van Dam. Zema does a lot of really good things that really do bring him out. But I'm kind of down on the fact that Rob Van Dam won. Like, I thought this would have been a great moment for Rob Van Dam to put Zema over. Like, even if it's through heel tactics, how fucking beneficial to Zema career would it be if he fucking beat Rob Van Dam? But then again, I guess they don't want to be saying, oh, so you broke somebody's neck. All right, we'll let you beat a main star. I think they're trying to discourage something like that because it's not exactly good for business. But anyway, Rob Van Dam wins. He's the new X Division champion. Somebody pointed out that Rob Van Dam is actually over the somewhat recently imposed weight limit on the X Division, and I guess they got rid of that. It's X Division. It's not about weight limits. It's about no limits. But good opener. Second match. Good follow-up. Like, I tend to prefer it when there's a relaxing match after a good opener because then you get because then you can kind of chill down and really open up and let the rest of the show really overwhelm you. So I would have said maybe Tara versus Miss Tessmacher should have been put on before Samoa Joe and Brutus Magnus, but still, Samoa Joe versus Brutus Magnus for the television championship. This was a more slow-paced and hard-hitting kind of match, and it was actually really good for that sort of thing. The crowd really got into it. Like, this crowd was actually really hot most of the night. And Brutus Magnus and Samoa Joe did a lot of really good things in this one. But the match was really well worked. I thought both guys looked pretty good. Samoa Joe wins. Still your TV champion. No real complaints. Next match. I'd say this match should have been like higher, but at the same time, I don't think ahead of time they knew how good this match was gonna be. Like, in terms of storyline importance, it's about right. Like maybe before Joey Ryan, but maybe Joey Ryan and Al Snow was meant to calm them down after this match. But wow, I did not expect like this good of a match. This was an amazing match. This was the Cowboy James Storm versus the It Factor Bobby Roode in a street fight with King Mo as a special enforcer. Now, King Mo as a special enforcer didn't really come up except for one point when they were about to knock out the referee, and then King Mo was like, "No," and then Bobby Roode said, "Just stop that." But wow, this match was just amazing. Like, first of all, this is actually one of the best examples of a storyline absolutely benefiting a match. The things people will do in street fights, a lot of times. You kind of get out of the phase of it. You're kind of just like, oh, how are they going to ramp up this match because they know the audience is looking for blood. This actually does set a really good context where Bobby Roode and James Storm absolutely despise each other and they just want to hurt each other in the worst way possible. And I love a lot of the little things they did in this match to kind of bring that in a little more. Like, every time Bobby Roode would try to attack James Storm, he would start insulting just saying these little insults and these little things towards James Storm. When James Storm would just start firing away at fucking Bobby Roode, you saw this level of intensity, this just burning hatred that really did, bring out the match. You want a great storytelling match, it's this one. And it's brutal. It is brutally, it is brutally hardcore. It is a fucking street fight. I didn't expect them to take the routes that they took. You know, like, I thought it was hardcore when they were just smashing each other with freaking, like, garbage can lids. And I was like, oh my god, Bobby Roode brought out thumbtacks? You know, and then when I saw him do it, I was like, you know what? Bobby Roode really, in storyline, Bobby Roode really hates fucking James Storm, so it fit. And then the ending of this, it's like, the ending, it's not like a surprise ending, and it's not that creative or anything, but it's that type of fitting ending that it's like, yes, this is how this should end. You know, this is how James Storm should finish off Bobby Roode and their established storyline. Both Bobby Roode and James Storm looked amazing in this match. And, you know, this is a match like, James Storm is pretty, Bobby Roode is pretty established in the main event and is like, okay, this cements him in there. James Storm, this made James Storm, you know, probably at their big next pay-per-view. I'm thinking Lockdown or, like, whatever the hell their next, like, not Lockdown, probably, Genesis. I'm thinking whatever their next big pay-per-view is, James Storm, like is going to be a lot of people's mind. They're going to say James Storm for the title. This match was incredible. You know, I wrote down like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 because like I'm really leaning towards 10 out of 10 here. You know, so I'm probably going to write something like 9 3/4 because it's like it's that close, but it's just a couple of little small sloppy moments which I already forgot, you know. But this is an A match, a fucking A match. If there is any match that could take down Undertaker versus Triple H as my match of the year, it's this one. Absolutely this one. This match was awesome. The next match, kind of a joke match. Joey Ryan versus Al Snow for a contract. You know, I'm sure everyone's already got the comments. Joey Ryan is what a Ron Burgundy would be if he was a wrestler. And I gotta admit, a lot of the stuff they did in the match was actually pretty funny, and it was actually a pretty good wrestling match. It was, I'd say, I call it above average. You know, it's Al Snow working. You know, what do you expect? Yeah, there's not really much to comment on it, except maybe the surprise ending. Matt Morgan comes right the fuck out of nowhere while the ref's down and clobbers Al Snow. And Joey Ryan just drags him in the ring and pins him 1, 2, 3. So now Joey Ryan is a TNA superstar and got a contract. You know, good match. It was smart putting this just after James Storm versus Bobby Roode, because otherwise, you know, this match is something where it has an objective and it's done. You know, whereas if it was like a match where it's like you're supposed to like get amped up for this match and absolutely love it, it would have been completely overshadowed by the previous match. Next match, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian versus AJ Styles and Kurt Angle versus Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez for the World Tag Team Championships of the world. This was, I think a lot of people are going to like rate this match a lot higher than I am. I did like this match, but my problem with it was that it was kind of spotty and also really sloppy. Like, there are botches galore in this match. And it also started a little bit slow. But anyway, it was actually it was definitely a good tag match between, I think I've been like messing up my ratings. And I don't think I've said this shit. I'm always disorganized at this shit. And I have the notes right here. I wrote 7 out of 10 for Zema Ion versus Rob Van Dam. I wrote 8 out of 10 for Samoa Joe versus Brutus Magnus. I wrote 9 or 10 out of 10 for James Storm versus Bobby Roode. I wrote 7 out of 10 for Al Snow versus Joey Ryan. And for this match, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Because, as I said, it's a kind of a slow starting match. And it felt a little spotty. But again, you know, the spots were really, really, really cool. The big botch for me where I was just like, oh, come on, was when Kazarian went to do a top rope jumping Hurricane Rana onto Hernandez, who was standing on the apron, and Hernandez didn't flip for the Hurricane Rana and dropped Kazarian. Kazarian landed really hard on the ground, and Hernandez just kind of flopped down on the side. But the match was still very good after this. There was some really, really cool spots, and the crowd psychology was actually kind of cool. Was actually kind of well done. Anyway, the winners of this match are Chavo, Guerrero, and Hernandez after a border toss into a frog splash. It's interesting. The crowd was really was not actually into this match until around the end. Again, slow start, a lot better ending. But surprisingly, they didn't really cheer for Chavo and Hernandez. I think they expected a lot more Latinos in the crowd than there are. It looks like a very heavy gringo crowd. So at the end where he's like, "Oh, viva la raza!" He didn't get much of a reaction. The biggest thing he said was when he said, "This is for Eddie." He said a lot of things, but before "this is for Eddie," but that one got the biggest reaction. But anyway, I'd call it a solid match, a very solid match, 8 out of 10. Again, I said that people will probably rate this higher because a lot of people don't mind if it's a spot fest or anything. It's just that for me, when it's a spot fest, big spot, like a giant dive. Giant dive after giant dive after giant dive. A lot of them start to lose meaning, and then it just becomes kind of a fireworks show. And a lot of times they just stop being as impressive as they can. If you've been wondering for my why I do that. Next match for the Knockouts Championship was Tara versus Miss Tessmacher. The build for this was actually pretty good, and I actually gotta say this: the build up for RVD versus Zema Ion, kind of non-existent. Joe versus Brutus Magnus there. James Storm versus Bobby Roode, amazing build up, basically build up for basically a year. Joey Ryan versus Al Snow, actually pretty funny storyline, and Kazarian and Daniels. Not build up around everybody, but just build up around Kazarian and Daniels. That was actually pretty good. So actually a lot of pretty good storyline build up in this pay-per-view. And even for Tara versus Miss Tessmacher, teacher gets pissed, attack student who's very successful, And this is another case of good match, good match. Like this is like a solid TV match. The biggest problem is, again, the usual problem with a lot of women's wrestling, and that is a lot of the moves were just really sloppy and not as well done as they could have been. But I will give them credit for for having at least a good match. I know Tara can have better ones, and I gotta say I still have no idea who that referee is that's been in these matches so consistently. But I want more of them shorts. And then, Tara comes out at the end and says, oh, yeah, Tara wins with the Widow's Peak. The match was largely unremarkable, but I gave it a 6 out of 10. Not bad, nothing remarkable. I said good for TV. And Tara comes out and says, "Oh, her Hollywood boyfriend," and then, starts overhyping him, which kind of leads you to believe, they're going to deliberately disappoint you. And they did. It was like, oh, it's this guy from Big Brother, and I've never watched that show, so I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Well, whatever. I guess they might be getting some decent press from this. And I love the crowd chant that they started. They started chanting, "Who are you? Who are you?" And that really started to make me laugh. So between the Tara match and this next match, they aired a segment where Sting got inducted into TNA's Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's actual physical Hall of Fame or not, but yeah, it basically showed the sort of ceremony and a little bit of tribute towards Sting. I still stand by my statement that AJ Styles should have been the first entrant into the TNA Hall of Fame because he is Mr. TNA. But, Sting, for as good of a career as he's had and for a lot of the benefit that he's had on the company, I can understand them putting him in. Anyway, the next match was Sting and Bully Ray versus Aces and Eights. Now I got to admit, this plot swerve that they had here, I did not expect this one. You know, what happens pretty much you pretty much kind of expected to happen. You know, Sting and Bully Ray comes out. Bully Ray comes out a lot more babyface than I expected him to be. You know, he came off more like, he actually came off kind of Eddie-ish in the fact that he would do very heel things, but kind of get a really funny crowd reaction and just kind of do everything a little more for laughs. And the thing is, they fought aces and eights. The problem with trying to fight aces and eights is that it's a little difficult to make them have impact when on a lot of their moves when they can't properly emote. You know, this is why Rey Mysterio always has his mask, you know, open at his mouth so that you can at least, you know, see him like scream out for pain or whatever. But it's kind of an ordinary match. Like it's basically a street fight. But the problem is, again, it's being vastly overshadowed by the much more superior street fight earlier in the match. You know, so not much of it is special. You know, Bully Ray and Sting, they are both good. They're both good wrestlers. The problem comes from the fact that they're not exactly the fastest guys. But the match is like it's mostly unremarkable, but it's like again, as I said, good for TV. But what was important here was not the match, it was the result. And the result was that the leader of Aces and Eights comes in at the last second and basically plants Bully Ray through a table, and the other member of Aces and Eights comes in and pins him. And then like all of Aces and Eights starts coming in, so it's 5 members coming in, and they just start beating the crap out of Bully Ray and Sting. And then Hulk Hogan comes out, and Hogan, they are really trying to sell you on the fact that Hulk Hogan's punches are supposed to be the toughest thing in the world, because he just punches each member of Aces and Eights that comes at him, and they just like sway away on the side, like just kind of saying to themselves, "Oh, I had my turn, I lost, I'm free, I'm out." Whee! You know, just kind of going away. And by the way, like I didn't mention this, but Aces and Eights now they're basically given the gates. They can come into TNA because they beat Bully Ray and Sting. So Hogan punches out one by one each of the members of Aces and Eights. You know, and until he gets to the leader, he rips his shirt off. You know. The leader of Aces and Eights starts to punch Hulk Hogan, starts hulking up, brother, and then just punches him, big boots. Sting and Bully Ray recover. Sting holds the leader by his arms, and then I think he unmasks him, and then it turns out the leader of Aces and Eights is Devon. Dum dum dum. I thought that was kind of surprising, but at the same time, I can see Devon as a ringleader. And if you look at Devon's history, you know, you could see him being really frustrated with getting overshadowed. So it's like, yeah, it kind of does make sense that he would, you know, go out and start attacking the bigger stars in TNA. You know, I thought this was a really nice swerve, and I'd like to see where they can go with this. I think Devon can pull off, you know, diabolical leader, especially with that voice of his. You know, unremarkable match. Its result is, you know, very important. Oddly enough, that's a very similar opinion that I have on the NWO, the Outsiders versus WCW match from Bash at the Beach 1996. You know, finally, the main event of the evening for Bound for Glory was Austin Aries versus Jeff Hardy for the TNA Heavyweight Championship of the World. Again, I don't think they expected James Storm and Bobby Roode to steal the show like they did, you know. But given their position, I think Austin Aries and Jeff Hardy did a very good job at trying to make this match feel very important. And they did a very good job in bringing the audience into it. Even though the audience was very split on who they liked. You know, either you heard the chants, let's go Austin, let's go Jeff. But, they were loud. Like, they were so loud. They were actually really into this match. And I got to give a lot of credit towards Austin Aries and Jeff Hardy. They both did a lot of really cool little things in this match that, really brought you in. And they went pretty brutal when they needed to. They went high-flying when they needed to. They both surprised the hell out of me in this match. It's just that it's not the main event match. It's not like the match that leaves you floored, like you're just hype after the fucking event. That leaves you wanting to see Impact, next Thursday. It's just a pretty good match. Who knows? Maybe that's my opinion because I'm not a Jeff Hardy fan, and I found it difficult to root for him in this match, and I found it a little difficult to root for Austin Aries. Because I don't think he's been as good of a champion as he could have been, even though he still has been very good. But still, pretty good match between these two. I gave it an 8 out of 10. And by the way, I gave 6s for both Tara versus Miss Tessmacher and Sting and Bully Ray versus Aces and Eights. I got to bring this stuff up a little more often. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for the main event. But on the show as a whole, how would I call it? I'd say this is an amazing pay-per-view. I'd say this is probably... TNA has been really surprising me. This is probably... I would call this the best pay-per-view of the year. It's... The biggest problem is the fact that the best matches... The best match was somewhat at the beginning. But, you got... This pay-per-view is actually a great example of storyline in wrestling, really benefiting it. You got it a little bit all over the place so that even when the matches, as good as they were, they kind of had that little something extra that got added because of what was going on. Even with disappointments like Miss Tessmacher versus Tara's, storyline reveal at the end, I still thought this was... I still thought a lot of the storyline going into this, was really good, and a lot of it really did come off very well. But let's see, how would I rate this as a pay-per-view as a whole? Structure of the card was not as impressive as I would hope. Again, I don't think they expected James Storm and Bobby Roode to steal the show as well as they did. But honestly, James Storm versus Bobby Roode may be alone worth watching the pay-per-view, because it is just that damn good, and most of the matches are pretty good actually, with pretty good storyline going into it. And I gotta say, the video packages they made, again, really good. The interview Kaz and Daniels did before that match, really good. I would actually call this on par with the No Mercy pay-per-view that I reviewed before. And that pay-per-view is considered one of the best WWE pay-per-views ever. So I'm going to give it pretty much the equal rating. 9 out of 10, What could have improved it? Maybe a little bit of a better match between Tara and Tessmacher. Maybe a little bit of a better match between Sting and Bully Ray. Maybe a little bit of a less sloppy match for the tag team titles. But really, I have very little to complain about with this, This has a little bit of everything in it, and that's another great thing to have in this, There's a ton of variety. You got your somewhat slower, fast-paced match, if that makes any sense. You got the heavy-hitting brooding match in the second match. You got the rage-fueled fucking street fight. You got the pretty funny with the surprise match. You got the fast-paced, crazy chaos match. You got a lot. You got the match with two hot girls in there. I don't think Tara's that hot, but Miss Tessmacher, ooh, yeah, she got some. There's something for everybody here, and it's like Goldberg said, that's when you're really successful, when you got something for everybody, that's something positive for the show. I give this show Bound for Glory 2012 gets 9 out of 10. definitely buy it when the DVD comes out. I would love to see if there are like some aces and eights extra, because then you could really like flesh out the storylines, and make it feel like that much more gratifying. Like, this has been Mr. Sanders, and I hope you also enjoyed Bound for Glory. If you have different opinions, leave some comments. Like this video if you don't mind blanks, if you don't mind still screens and odd voices, and make sure to subscribe. It's been Mr. Sanders. Peace.